reading Seneca as usual. Uh, I'm on letter 15. And the first half of it is so wrong it's kind of ridiculous. But that's it. The second half, it's not especially good for Seneca, but I mean it's not bad. It's just not. It's just there's nothing that stands out. It's very typical Seneca. But there is one thing that talks about fortune. Fortune, of course, in this case, could be good or bad fortune, and not being a slave to fortune. And when I talked about that before, I was talking about that specifically in a way that was kind of extreme and psychotic. I thought, like the guy Stilbo, I think it was his name, that didn't even grieve the loss of his wife and children or something like that. But uh, the idea of being not dependent on fortune in and of itself is good because you need to be able to endure hardships, and that's really that's really the heart of stoicism, I think, and certified non-expert. The whole point, the entire point of stoicism is, well, the entire point is virtue, but to that end, a part of that is to be able to endure difficult times. And part of what that is just kind of ironically, is you want to enjoy the good times, but you also don't want to be. You want to savor them, but you don't want to go nuts with them. I probably should have even gone down that road because I don't even know what word I'm using to describe it. But so in letter 15, um, he talks about one comparing yourself to other people, which is like when you look at all the people out in front of you. In other words, all the people that are doing better than you. Think of all the ones behind you. In other words, all the people behind you. That made me think of something that I just recently listened to. Dan Carlin, his Hardcore History podcast, something that was kind of interesting. Julius Caesar, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Julius, but it may have been Augustus, but I think it was Julius. Um, Stood in front of a statue of Alexander the Great and started crying because he hadn't accomplished nearly so much as Alexander had, which is really, really weird because look at all the people behind him. Look at all the people that were accomplished so much less than him. But that wasn't what he was concerned about. He was too anxious um, about something that, well, in my mind, doesn't matter. I think of Ozymandias, that poem, which is worth looking up if you're not familiar with it. You've probably heard it because it was featured in. I don't remember if it was in the movie, but it was in the comic book, The Watchmen. It was good, very good poem. I recommend Ozymandias. Good poem to look up. Um, but at any rate, talks about um, comparing yourself to others, but in the context of that, he talks about um, prizes that you get whenever you like win something, win a contest or something. Doesn't even be a contest. It could just be like the dope. This could be controversial, but the dopamine rush that you get whenever you hit a goal. I don't think he's saying there's anything wrong with that. Um, but he says he calls those deceptive prizes. He may actually be talking about contests. I'm not 100% sure now I think of it. Um, no, I don't think so. I think he means prizes in terms of like accomplishments. Um, Say goodbye at last to those deceptive prizes, more precious to those who hope for them than to those who have won them. Think of a 6-year-old with some toy they want. And I don't mean 6-year-old, you know. I mean, think back to when you were a 6-year-old, and think some kind of a toy that you wanted. Um, there was a Calvin and Hobbes strip that talked about that. I can't remember how they put it. I do remember that an episode of How I Met Your Mother, which is it's okay. It's an overrated show, but it's not bad. Barney talked about getting is better than having, and that's of course that's exactly the mindset that he's talking about here. Is uh, uh, deceptive prizes more precious to those who hope for them than for those who have them. Um, if there were anything substantial in them, they would sooner or less bring a sense of fullness. As it is, they simply aggravate the thirst of those who swallow them. So those things should be satisfying. But what happens when you get money? You want more. Same with pizza. Um, and there's a proverb here that I tried to find the source. It looks like it's unknown. Um, sorry. Um, the life of folly is empty of gratitude, full of anxiety. And let me start that over. The life of folly is empty of gratitude, full of anxiety. It is focused wholly on the future. I think that is kind of similar to what one of the previous videos I talked about was. It's uh, anyway, but the idea of being independent of fortune is really not an easy thing. But I think there's definitely a lot of wisdom to it, and it brings to mind. This is New Testament. I had well, I'll explain that later. It's not really important, but it made me think of one of the most misunderstood verses in the Bible. Uh, so Philippians 4:13. Paul says, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Uh, I think I have more often here that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Maybe that's the King James. I don't know, but um, this is one of the most misquoted verses in the Bible because people think, "Oh, that means I can I can win this foot race. I can win this basketball game. I can get this job. I can do everything through him who strengthens me." But that's not what he's talking about. There's context to this. So if you go back to Philippians 4 11 and go up to 13, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. He's not talking about some kind of a that he can split the atom if he wants to. He's saying that he can endure anything. And that's pretty similar, I think. Like, he can, abundance and need, uh, plenty and hunger. He can endure all things that he needs. He can endure anything that he needs to endure because of Christ who gives him strength. Now, that goes back to what is so frustrating from a Christian perspective about the Stoics, or at least Seneca, is so often it seems so incomplete. Um, Blind desire. So he condemns blind desire into activities that are likely to bring us harm and will certainly never bring us satisfaction. And he's so right. The problem is he doesn't really have any real solutions. How do you live a life independent of fortune? And I know that I think at least as far back as Plato that's been discussed, but the Apostle Paul is giving us a solution by Christ, by looking to Christ. This is, and That's why it's so frustrating to be so incomplete. But he gets so much of this right, though. I still think this is just a really interesting stuff.